Change. The Astrotherapy Podcast. Interviews.
Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome you, Josh, and everyone to the Astrotherapy Podcast, where we are talking about everything change. This is a new cycle of conversations that I've been very inspired to have with some of my dearest friends and people on this planet. So we're going to be talking about everything related to change, the theme itself, and exploring how that shows up in artistry and creativity and being human, in inner work and process, and just the exploration of life in general. So, first of all, thank you so much, Josh, for being here. Thank you for being one of my most favorite people on the entire planet. And Josh, many of you might know Josh. He is an incredible friend. And if you haven't had the blessing of having his friendship in your life, I'm sure that you might feel that through his songs, through his heart, how he expresses himself, through his written word. Many of you might be reading his newsletter and get to receive his insights, which he is so thoughtful, so deeply curative. I don't know if that's a word, but as you curate, Josh, your synthesis of the world through curiosity and just a constant state of awe and deep consideration of what you're digesting, and then how you share that with those of us. I highly recommend his newsletter, by the way. And a few of you might recognize his face. He's been on TV, he's been in film. But I just want to place emphasis that if that's where you know him from, there is a multitude of dimensionality that is beyond the camera. And so I'm very thrilled and super honored to have you here today, Josh, to explore some of that.
Oh, thanks, Ciela. I basically, I think since I've known you, what did we figure out? 2007? We're coming up on 19 years or so. Wait, is it 2025? Yeah.
It's going to be 2026. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Eventually,
We've known
hopefully.
each other 18 years, but I feel like I have just a kind of permanent yes with you. You know, you invite me into spaces, both literal and you both physical and metaphysical, and I think I've always said yes. I mean, it's led us on a lot of adventures, but I'm a yes to you. So I'm a yes to this conversation.
Awesome, Josh. Thanks for bringing the fire so that we are an official fireside chat. Are you in Brooklyn right now?
I'm in Brooklyn. It's not the winter, but the fire's on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Question for you before we fully dive in. Just what's the first sensation, thought, experience when you hear the word change?
Well, it feels like reality. Like just like the fact, like the hard fact of reality, like on this plane, is just change. You know, I heard this wonderful novelist named Catherine Lacey. I went to her book launch kind of Q&A at this bookstore a couple blocks from me last night, and someone asked her about loss, the theme of loss running through her novels. And she said, I think that every book in this bookstore, including the cookbooks, are about loss. That there's not a single thing we do or touch or make that is not about loss of time, loss of, energy, or loss of hope, loss of who we thought we were. She said her friend has a 6-year-old child and says he misses the 2-year-old, and that raising a child is just this series of losses of the people that they used to be. And that doesn't have to be so morose, I don't think. I mean, I think if we sentimentalize that or get sad about that or try to stop that, we're going to get in way more suffering. I think it's just an acceptance of the fact that on this plane that we're on this earthly plane, change is the theme. You know, I've heard it said the only true statement is this too shall pass. So we're in this transitory, ever-changing, mutating thing. And I can tell you assuredly, I feel different than when I woke up this morning. Like I've been through a lot this morning already, and I feel different than when I woke up, and I will go to sleep feeling different. And I think that I wish I had been taught that change is the theme of the earth. I wish someone had really taught me that really young, and to say like, and it's good, like be on the side of change.
Mm. I'm kind of stuck, maybe, a little nostalgic, sentimental with that little boy. And as
Yeah.
you were sharing that, I don't know, I just was dropped into this space of nostalgia. And I'm just wondering if there's anything you could share with our friends, our audience today around sentimentality, nostalgia for what has been, and your experience of that as
Mm.
well.
Yeah. The second film I directed, which is called Liberal Arts, and it's basically on some level an investigation or interrogation of the uses or misuses of nostalgia. It's a 35-year-old. I play a 35-year-old guy who lives in New York City who's never quite gotten over college. He's never quite gotten over the community and the academic rigor, and just living a life of the mind, and eating meals with his friends. I mean, there was so much, and I love that too. I love communal living. I love going away to do a play or a TV show and having dinner with the cast. And there's something beautiful about it to me. But also, kind of the point of the film is that we have to uh, bid farewell to these times in our lives. We have to know when a chapter is over. And in some ways, until we're always in some state of like birth and death, grief and hope. Like I think until we grieve what has been, and kind of bid it farewell, we can't fully step into the new. Um, I worked with this playwright, Richard Greenberg, a wonderful, brilliant writer. And I read somewhere that he said, nostalgia is simply a longing for a time we know we can survive. So, we look at our lives and we think, oh, I miss that time because I know I got through it. But this moment, I don't know if I'm going to get through it. I think that's why every moment in politics or geopolitics feels like the scariest moment.
Mm.
Like our parents were cowering under desks for nuclear, tests, like nuclear alarms and stuff when they were kids. And we grew up kind of under the shadow of like, also like nuclear, like Soviet, Cold War. And then that shifted into this whole other, like, I think one of the things that gives me hope is it's always been the scariest time to be alive. It's always been the worst time to be alive. Like it is not easy to be on this earth plane.
Yeah.
And and I'm comforted, there's more, I think, doomsday prophecy going on right now than maybe ever. There's fears of AI, and there's fears of terrorism and global warfare, and just we're always kind of prophesying / weirdly praying for our own demise. And I'm comforted by the fact that every doomsday prophet has been proven to be a failure. There's no doomsday prophet that got it right.
Hmm.
So I'm reading Richard Rohr's new book, The Tears of Things, which is about the prophets, the Old Testament, the Hebrew prophets. And there's a theme that runs through the Hebrew prophets, which is always, it starts off with like anger and warning and foreboding, and this is going to happen, and you have forsaken your God, and you're off the path, and you have done this and done this and done this, and this is what's going to happen. And it's this terrifying picture. And there's always this moment at the end. It's called the Great Nevertheless, where the prophet says,
Hmm.
Nevertheless, God will show you mercy. God will forgive. God will grant you, a new life. So I think there's something, we're always taken up to the brink, and we're always
Yes.
spared.
Well, it's so metaphorical, I think, for not just what is happening in our outer world, but if we can apply that to ourselves, just um that acceptance almost of when we feel like we're failing something,
Yeah.
that actually and many of us who are entrepreneurs understand that our failures can be our greatest success. It just isn't that in the moment necessarily. It doesn't feel that way. We have to go through something. We have to experience some kind of excruciating pain or humiliation or having made an error and having to then move through that in order to transcend through the embodiment of the solution or finding or touching into a power source, maybe within ourself or our community or whoever it is that we're working with, our colleagues, in order to kind of rise to a new occasion and to a new sense of victory. And so as you're saying that, it is hopeful. It's hopeful because, as you're saying, many of us on the planet right now are slightly concerned, if not terrified or
Panicked. Yeah.
panicked, or, and it's a good reminder. Yeah. It's, when has it been easy to be a human being? Like,
Yeah.
when has it ever been easy? I mean, all of the
And you could,
mythology
yeah,
points
I mean, you could
otherwise.
make the case also statistically, this is the safest time to be alive. The medicine is better than ever. The life expectancy is longer than ever. There is, in fact, less war and less bloodshed and less infant mortality than there's ever been. But our awareness and our global connectivity makes us alert to every fire going on. So our brains kind of almost are in a little more fight or flight, but
hmm
the statistics, spell things out otherwise.
Well, and also if there's more known, we have more information. We're stretching the edge of technological frontiers. There's more known, science ebbs and flows inside of all of that. But psychedelics, have expanded our multidimensionality, our amplified states of consciousness. So there's more known, which also begets more unknown. And so I think the more unknown that is present is more unsettling.
And like the more advances there are in science, the more is revealed what we don't know. Like, is that what you mean?
Yes, yes. And also, I feel like the stretch of what is known, in the past, you know, let's say whatever science has revealed, and, oh, the earth is round. It's like suddenly that frontier opens,
Right.
and then
Like
there's all this
yeah,
other that we don't know
right.
about, right? It's like
Like
this whole
the
other
more, the
exploration.
greater microscopes or telescopes get, the
Yes.
more the vastness is revealed, which is like, I saw something so astonishing that was like, for every grain of sand on the earth, there's a billion planets in the universe. Like, it was
Wait,
like,
say this one more time.
for
For every
every
grain.
grain of sand on the earth, there are a billion planets in the universe. Someone should fact check that, but I'm going to say it with great authority. Like, I know, but it was kind of
Yes.
like saying, like, you cannot comprehend how big the universe is. You cannot comprehend how
Yes.
big infinity is. I mean, it's so big, you can't even talk about it as big. It's just endlessly itself.
Exactly. And so we can only conceive of that which we have some sort of semblance of, right? So
Right.
we're
That's why
we're
when everyone talks about God, it's so silly because it so reduces it to us. It brings that down to our grievances and our petty concerns rather than
yes,
just this incomprehensibly beautiful and expansive and ever evolving thing.
yes. And I'm curious in this moment, like what would God say or teach us right now about change? You know? And when I asked you in the beginning, what does change invoke in you or evoke, let's say, um, you said reality.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to that. It's like kind of it's the water we're swimming in if we're fish.
Right.
It's
Right.
like what
Right.
it's
Right.
the air we're breathing, it's change, it's everywhere, it's in nature, it's in our bodies, it's in our
Right.
relationships, it's in our thinking, it's in our feeling,
Right.
it's everywhere. Yeah.
Well, if you one of the qualities of divinity is omnipresence, right? Like, it's everywhere, which means that there's nowhere it is not. So everything I'm looking at, everything I am, is saturated with this divinity to the
Mhm.
point where there's no speck or spot that it's not. It's omnipresent, which means that all of this is divinity. It's all divine, which means also that because this thing is always changing, it must mean on some level that divinity itself is in a process of change and evolution. There's a thing that Richard Rohr, my beloved friend, the Franciscan priest, says that it's not that God is unknowable, it's that God is endlessly knowable. That we can keep going deeper into the mystery and keep having things be revealed deeper and with more depth, more clarity, more, and but it on some level, I in 12 step, which I am a great fan of, the spiritual model of 12 step, it says, pick a higher power. You can pick your own higher power. You can define your own higher power. It just has to be an intelligence greater than your own intelligence. It can be a room full of alcoholics, 12 alcoholics in recovery with a lot of sobriety over the years is a lot smarter collectively than you, one person, is with, a week off of whatever your substance is. So even that can be a higher power. But as you go and grow through, say, that program or through any other spiritual practice, as you change, your understanding of a higher power actually changes, which means on some level that higher power is involved in an evolutionary process. I know there's people who say, God is forever this, fixed and eternal and always says this, and the word is this, and it's never changing. And I don't know. I don't believe, I don't know. I look around me and all I see is change.
Absolutely. I mean, Josh, okay, so we've established we've known each other for about 18 years. When I met you, I think it was also, we spent some time near a fire. We were meditators.
Yeah. Our first
and
very big conversation was in front of a fire in Ojai.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. And it's like, oh, I recognize you. And, since then, I think you were focused on TV in your career at that moment. And you were just starting to really open up in a very profound way in your psyche, in your spiritual path. And, you know, since then, I've witnessed you and you've witnessed me through some tremendous change and tumult and bliss and ecstasy and victory and deep challenges and a lot of tears and laughter and pain and acceptance and growth. And now, I recently went to your wedding, and you're now a husband. And I know that was a big change for you, Josh. Is there
Sure.
anything you can share with us about that journey? I know that's, a few, decades even, but what would you love to share with us about the change or that alchemical process that you went through becoming a husband?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I had, um, I was the star of a very famous TV show about a guy looking for love and looking for his wife and wanting that more than anything. And it's interesting when you land on a show for that long that became that popular, it ceases to become like I was just in the right place at the right time, or I was cast well and I just hit the jackpot. At least the way I look at it, it feels a little more like dharma or karma, maybe some combination of both of them. And I think I always looked younger than I am. I'm 50, and yeah, I'm 50, which feels so weird to say, but
Awesome.
yeah. And I think I was always afraid of getting older. I was always afraid of it looked fun to me to be young, and it never looked all that fun to be an adult. But then I got to know adults. Like we both, you and I, know some real like special elders, Your mom, to me, is looks like
Oh,
someone who's like, she just looks like she's like aging well. Like she both looks great, but she also like her spirit's really bright, you know? And
Yeah.
the adults, like a lot of adults that in my, like maybe, I don't know if I was really seeing them correctly, but it looked like a bit of a drag, you know? It just looked like mortgage, taxes, responsibility, a little vacation here and there, you know, like it was, and, um, and I think I got it in my head that, you know, marriage or family or like that was where the kind of fun stopped. And I've really disproven that to myself, not just in my own experience, but I have a lot of friends. Like when I met my wife, I was making a record in Nashville with these great guys, Corey, Jeremiah, and Kyle, who you might have met at my wedding. And it was right. You know, I was there in Nashville for 2 weeks. I went to New York. I met Jordana. I came back. I had 2 more weeks with these guys, and they were all happily married, you know, younger than me, but happily married, really genuinely happily married, fans of marriage, you know? And it was
Hmm.
so nice because it wasn't the cliched, like, the wife, the old ball and chain, you know, these cliches and everyone's rolling their eyes at their spouse and all that stuff. And there was just something, I rounded a corner where I had done enough spiritual work, enough therapy, enough uh, working with my shadow, working with addictive tendencies, working at just interrogating some of the myths or beliefs that I held, and some of them just shattered. And I don't know if it was time or the right person. It was probably a combination of both. But I still think that Jordana, my wife, is the only person I could be married to. like there's just some, and she feels the same way about me. There's just some weird combination of factors and
Hmm.
qualities. And we were actually talking about this yesterday that like I I think that we a lot of us, or I would say most of us, I think I can say this. A lot of us carry this belief that there's some part of us, and it might be a small part of us, but it's a present part of us, is unlovable or like just ugly and misshapen, and it's the source of our shame, and it's why we ultimately have to run when someone's about to love us because we're like, I don't want them to see that part. But it's also the part that has to be revealed in intimacy. And the right person, like my wife has seen that part of me, like she knows that part of me.
Hmm.
And she said this to me directly. I love that part of you. I
Wow.
love that part of you.
What happened to you when she said that?
Well, we were already like very much together, but I
Hmm.
think I was able to be with her because she had shown me her part of that, like that, and she had offered that up to me.
Hmm.
And then I was able to show her that part, which I don't know I ever willingly showed someone. You know, I don't. I was always I was very addicted to novelty and newness. I liked the euphoria and the kind of champagne fizzy newness of infatuation and first love and falling. And when the chemicals would wear off, I would get scared and kind of panic. And I used to always think it was the woman's fault. Like I had good reasons for leaving relationships, but I did enough work to realize like I was quite a pill and quite difficult and quite avoidant, you know?
Hmm.
I would come on very strong and then I would start to pull away. And it was this very painful cycle for me and the women I was involved with. Um, and Jordana had to weather some of that. Like it's reflexive for me. It's not something that but I'm getting so much better at recognizing when like a storm pattern's blowing through, like a cloud is
Yeah.
blowing through. I've now been with her for 3.5 years. It's the longest like real relationship I've ever had. And we've never once broken up. I've never
Hmm.
once like plotted an exit or considered leaving. You know, it just seems to be tumbling forward in like a way
Hmm.
that's really pleasing. I think
Yeah.
the right person came at the right moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, as witness to both, I really want to acknowledge both of you. Actually, I'd love to acknowledge Jordana for being so graceful and elegant in weathering these storms with you. Like I've just witnessed her being so gentle and also powerful in the presence of your process, and then you, Josh, acknowledging you for you made it, you know?
Yeah.
You really did it. And I witnessed you for years in this struggle and in as a knight in a battle, and
Mm.
you were battling yourself, right? But
Yeah, yeah,
it didn't
yeah.
always look like that. But I mean, and to witness you and to love you through that as your dear friend and sister, and to feel the agony with you, and to feel those victories, and to
You
see.
actually, yeah, you held my hand through like a lot of breakups. Like
Yeah,
you were one of my first calls, when I needed to like really grieve. And
yeah.
in Shakespeare, the Henry Ford Part 1 and 2 is there's a prince, Hal, and he's the son of the king, but he doesn't want to be the king. He wants to hang out in the pub with his friends, Falstaff, who you might have heard of, who's like this big, jolly, drunk, very witty guy. And he's got all these kind of barroom friends. And he
Hmm.
just loves being with his friends. And he's kind of running from the inevitable, that he'll have to assume the throne. And when his father dies, he has to turn his back on his drinking buddies, and he has to reject Falstaff because he knows that he's stepping into a new archetype.
Right.
And I think that it's a mapped kind of pattern for a lot of men,
Hmm.
like there in Jungian psychology, there's this concept of puer aeternus, the eternal child, the Peter Pan who doesn't want to
Hmm.
grow up. And I think that I had a lot of that. I had a lot of just this fear of stepping into the king or the man archetype. Um, and I still sometimes have to remind myself like who I am. Change is so much easier when you let the tide take you rather than trying to kind of swim upstream. Like you have to partner with where the energy is moving you. Um, but I also I still think it's healthy to acknowledge grief and to acknowledge the heartache of something passing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you, as an example of that, meeting this moment, this whatever this moment is, that is, a forge of sorts, or it's such a strong, powerful invitation. I'm feeling it in myself too, Josh. I'm feeling myself rise to an occasion that I never have before, and I'm feeling a lot of grief, actually, and I'm having to step through, and I'm having to really face a certain loss in different areas of my life, letting go in order to let whatever this next thing is in. But I don't get to know what that is necessarily, right? It's just like, so that's
Hmm.
where trust comes in, that's where faith comes in. And it can be a lot of different feelings there. I also, as we were talking earlier, just about this moment, it's like there's all this focus on how difficult, or it's the worst, or it's the scariest, or it's the most intense moment of humanity. And I love that you kind of brought us back into, no, it's always that. It's always
Yeah.
that. We're always on the edge of change. We're always, kind of at the cusp of a certain terror. It's just relative. But at the same time, you know, I'm looking at you. I'm witnessing you through your life and the life phases you're going through. I mean, you just recently moved from California to New York, and I know that there was this big pulse between the coasts here, and I want to talk more about that. But also from actor into singer-songwriter, you've been on tour. I mean, it's so extraordinary. How are you feeling being in New York City? What's that like?
Hmm. Um, I was just walking Nelson yesterday and just thinking how much I love this neighborhood and how I've really settled in. John Morrow, our mutual dear friend, he said to me when I was nervous about moving back to New York, and he said, it's really nice to have friends who've known you long enough because they've seen you. They like
Yeah.
know, like you've been here before, or this reminds me because there's a rhyme that how we deal with certain chapters, and he said you've loved every chapter of your life since I've known you, and he's known me as long as you've known me, basically, right? So it was such a nice reflection. Like, yes, I have anticipatory anxiety. I get scared on the precipice of change. But once I jump in and I actually do the thing and move or take the new job, or once I say yes, there's always this burst of energy and relief. There's always this, it uncorks something in me that I can tell. Yeah, I had to be scared because change is scary, but I also know that the deepest parts of myself are actually longing for that change. People who are listening to this or might be at their own kind of pivotal moment or a fork in the road. Um, many sages have said this, but I remember Ram Dass saying something like, your life, your course work of your life is what your yoga, your practice is whatever your life is. I think about, the weird challenges, like being on a television show as long as I was, that was as popular as the one I was on, brought with it a lot of blessings and a lot of ease on some level, but it also brought incredibly strange hardships, like stuff that I don't even need to go into, but like very strange, destabilizing things.
Hmm.
And not least of which is like the feeling that your identity gets kind of put through a meat grinder, and you're like, do people know who I am, or do they only think they know who I am, or they only know me for this one thing, but that's only a part of me, and it's not even me, it's someone else. And like the whole identity kind of a house of mirrors is very strange. And it was such a fierce teacher for me in so many ways. And I think about it like, wow, how weird that my sacred path on earth involved being on this big TV show and feeling this erosion of anonymity and this erosion of my sense of self, or this fracturing of my sense of self. And also, like, it's given me a lot of creature comforts too. It's made certain things easier, but it's made other things harder. So I just think, well, for whatever reason, for whatever my karma is or dharma is, that is my path. Other
Yeah.
people, all my friends, all my family, like they all have their own path. And I think it behooves us to trust the universe as a benevolent teacher, that we're being handed things that are for our highest good. Whether that's true or not, I don't know if it matters. What matters is, it's like my friend Dion says, I don't know if there's a God. I just know when I act like there's one, my life is a lot better. So I think, like, if we if we act like the universe is benevolent and ordered and teaching us something and behave accordingly, um, something lightens in our load. We
Hmm.
because it takes away the feeling that we're a victim. It takes away the feeling that there's a mistake, that if only this had happened, then blah, 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 and only if this had happened, it puts us at war with reality. And I think part of spiritual growth is dropping that war and saying, like,
Hmm.
okay, reality, I trust you. I trust you. I'm going to work with you rather than against you.
So Josh, you're sitting in New York City. Um, you're in a very supportive, loving relationship. There's a lot, um, there's a lot expanding in your life right now, and you are a creative. You are an artist. You have explored so many different mediums and continue to do so. Um, I'm curious, as we're talking about change, and change is, as we've established, is it exists in the past, the present, and the future. Um, what are you exploring now around your future? What are your creative dreams? What are you hoping for in the next kind of iteration of your creative expression?
Well, it's actually, I would say yeah, I'm in a process of trying to get very clear on what I want. Like,
Hmm.
when I was 27, 28, 29, like, I really knew what I wanted. Like, I had such vision. And Jordana has reflected back to me, and she's like, when you have vision, like when you know what you want, the doors just swing open. But when I get confused about what I want, or when I am at odds with myself, I just get confusion back from the universe, because it's like, I think we're in conversation with the universe. That's why, I don't know who said this, but I always thought it was brilliant. Like, the universe doesn't understand sarcasm. So just
Mm,
don't say the opposite of what you mean, because the universe is listening, and it
yeah.
confuses the universe on some level. So to get very clear, like, I directed 2 films, Happy, Thank You, More Please, and Liberal Arts, 2010 and 2012. Like, it was a long time ago. And I love
Where
that
can we see
process.
those, by the way, Josh? I'm just
I don't
curious.
know if they're streaming. I think maybe Happy Thank You's on YouTube. You can rent any of them from
Okay.
anywhere.
That was
Um,
that was such a joy to go see that at
at
Sundance,
Sundance.
and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah. It was so nice to have you guys there. Such sweet memories. Um, but I loved the process of directing so much. And I was in those movies, and I don't know if I want to do that again exactly, but I thought that directing movies was actually, in some ways, I feel this when I'm in a studio making an album or playing music in front of people, but there's something about directing movies of a script that I wrote that feels like the culmination of a lot of my gifts, and a lot of, my ability to talk to people where they're at, to get great performances out of people, to set the tone and the mood, to create a really, like, great working environment where everyone feels seen and appreciated and uplifted. Um, there, it yeah, and holding the story in my head, and helping in bringing it to life, and empowering people to do their best work, both in front of and behind the camera. Like, the whole thing was very um exciting for me. But I see that. I don't know how to not make music at this point. Like, music is
Yeah.
still, yeah, it's just like, I didn't know I had so many songs in me. Like, it's such a sweet joy. And I had so many sweet moments on tour, meeting people. Um, and yeah, I mean, I still, I still get the most satisfaction from self-generated work. I mean, sometimes work comes in that you want to do, and you say yes to it, and you kind of, play an instrument in someone else's orchestra. But I really like being
Hmm.
the composer and the conductor. I like I like the responsibility of it. Frankly, I like, sometimes, when I was starring in these 2 movies that I did, like, starring in, writing, directing movies is, like, actually too much responsibility. Like, it's too much on your plate. And for some reason, it really called something pretty ferocious forth in me, that I sometimes, when when I am under assigned responsibility, like when I don't have that much to do, I don't do my best work. But when I am just scared enough to, when it freaks me out just enough, it calls forth something in me that is not as cerebral, much more instinctual, and can really move and really create something.
Well, definitely the world will be a better place with more of your films in it, Josh.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I look forward to seeing that. I feel really good about it happening for you, and
Hmm.
I'm going to keep that vision alive for sure, because I think that is definitely your element, as a director and creating a world. You create these worlds from your experience, from your inspiration. Um, and it does seem to be like a pretty decent container for you to play in, as an artist.
Mm.
Um, I'm still I'm holding out, for the someday Josh Radnor one day kind of theatrical experience where it's like, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, that's Jordana's thing too. She wants me to take all my songs and kind of turn them into a one-man show, which I
yeah.
is pretty exciting to me, but we just haven't embarked on it yet.
I think it's intuition. I think she and I are both feeling something that could reveal itself in the future.
Yeah.
Um, and, you know, as long as I've known you, your creative path has definitely been parallel to your spiritual journey. I don't even know if they're that separate. I mean,
Yeah.
we could say they're the same, and, one's more expressed out in the world, one's more internal, but then they kind of interweave.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm just, it's like where are you in your spiritual journey right now? I mean, and is there anything you want to share about where you've been in your spiritual journey?
Well, I was raised in a Jewish household. My parents weren't super religious. I mean, we went to synagogue and stuff, and I had a bar mitzvah, but they sent me and my sisters to an Orthodox Hebrew day school. So I had this very strong kind of foundational Jewish education. And I always dearly loved the stories of in the Torah. And I was good at school, and I liked school. I was more of a English history person than a math science person, but I I enjoyed learning, and I loved books, and I loved learning something new. I think when I discovered the theater, that felt more somatic and more spiritual and more I don't know, there was an epiphany of a kind where I felt like, no, this is actually my place of worship. Like theater is where that's my cathedral, you know?
Mhm.
And then I went deeper into theater, very focused. I mean, absolutely single-minded around, I want to be an actor. I love the theater. I love the people I'm collaborating with. The whole thing felt so enlivening and so like this other much more enchanted kind of reality that I could step into. And I couldn't believe there wasn't even a possibility that I could do that for my life. And I think once it became my life, and once I started to achieve success, at first, in the theater, but then on television, I think I realized that I needed like a bigger cathedral. Like the theater itself was not big enough. Actually, no walls would have been big enough, right? Like I needed just something bigger and grander and more mysterious because the I mean, I don't want to discount it. I was on a kind of spiritual path around acting and theater and being able to emotionally express in ways that I didn't think I could as a kid. All of that felt profoundly shifting. It altered me. But once success came, I think I thought I would find some sort of peace or resolution um, in success. And in fact, it was actually quite a good thing because it brought me to the end of a kind of, not to the end, I mean, I still long for worldly success, but it was more like, oh, I'm not going to actually find what I'm looking for here. I need to go deeper. I need to look at what people have been saying for thousands of years. I need to reconnect with, yeah, I need to reconnect with something divine, with something holy. And, that's taken many different forms. I've studied many different traditions. I I'm much more drawn to like the mystics in every tradition, which is like non-duality and kind of union with the divine, love songs, to the divine, the songs of the Psalms of David, the poetry of the Sufis, these mystic kind of yearning love poems. Another thing Richard Rohr says that I love dearly is every mystic, guru, saint, every prayerful person who's given up everything to find God, when they return, they always describe meeting a lover, not a dictator. And yeah, I mean, I'm very, I understand why people set up this kind of fearful, punishing God, but it's been my experience that that's just not my experience of God. I've always found when I kneel at the altar, when I really have contact, there's always infinite mercy, infinite forgiveness, infinite support, infinite benevolence.
I really appreciate how the poetic yearning for the divine and that dance really is expressed through your lyrics, you
Mm.
know? in your songs. And um, there's something about what is happening through you musically that I feel like is such a marriage of human and that which isn't human, and the
Mm-hmm.
exploration of that in a very human way. That's so relatable. It also every kind of lyric or verse kind of takes you a step closer to something,
Mm.
a step closer into that mysterious realm. Um, so I definitely encourage you to keep singing, writing songs. I don't, as you mentioned, I don't know if you could stop. There's something prolific, Josh.
Mm.
What a surprise in a very cool way, right?
A lot of my songs, I'd say like a quarter of my songs or a third of my songs are prayers. They're
Mhm.
on some level, they're prayers, they're petitions, they're yearning, they're songs of thanks or praise, or songs of, prayers of resilience. Like I think that I really relate to the notion of like the troubadour, or someone who went from town to town telling stories through song. Like I like that archetype. I don't know if
Mhm.
that's exactly what I am, but there's something in um, carrying a song. I like having songs in my back pocket. There's something really nice about it.
Yeah, I remember sitting on your couch when your musician self was coming alive, when you were birthing this, and you suddenly had the guitar and you couldn't let go, like you were just playing the guitar and these little ditties were coming out and then the songs and then it just started to flow.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, can you can you kind of uh assess or can you feel or can you recall that moment? Because that was definitely a moment of change. There was something pivotal happening for you, and it was like the music kind of took you through into this new chapter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I started writing songs with our friend Ben Lee, who is a great Australian songwriter, and we'd been friends for about a decade before we ever wrote a song together. But we started writing songs together, and then I don't know, we were having a good time. Like we just got together and we kept writing songs, and they were good, and we had such a good time doing it. It was almost like a great way to hang out. It was just like, it felt like there's actually a term for it. Jordana talks about, like, those friends you have when you're a little kid that are like, it's such a deep friendship. It's like
Hmm.
it's like it's not quite it's not romantic, but it's like your heart is with this person. It's just like you light up, you get creative with them, you get silly with them, and it's called a chum, right? Like they're your
Hmm.
chum, they're like your real. And that's what it felt like with Ben. It felt like we were in fifth grade, like discovering something new, but we were grown up, but it was just like this way for us to play and relate and be silly and deep. And our songs would always emerge out of a conversation. And Ben has been playing guitar since he was like 11 or 12, right? And at the time we started writing together, I didn't play guitar, but we co-wrote all the songs together. So, Ben was really deferential to me, strangely, around lyrics, but also around melody. He really wanted my input, and he had the insight, actually, like that he was there to kind of support my musical awakening. Like he was really of service to
Hmm.
it, even though he would bring his expertise to bear and help and make it more interesting and all this stuff. But he really let me lead a lot of the tone, a lot of what we were writing about, the song ideas. Even though we co-wrote everything together, like there's nothing on those Radnor and Lee records that both our fingerprints aren't all over. Um,
Hmm.
but the first album, I did not play guitar, and then I just decided I was gonna start playing guitar. And I don't know, I learned a G, C, and D chord in college. Like I knew the chords, but my right hand was pitiful. I didn't know how to strum. I didn't know how to finger pick. But I got a teacher in LA. I got a teacher in New York, and I just started learning. And then Ben taught me a ton. Like Ben was the greatest. I got this kind of great apprenticeship while at the same time doing it at the same, like the best way is to
Yeah.
do, right? So I got this, and we were touring, and we would be in Brazil, and I just started playing guitar, and he said, bring your guitar on stage. We'll tell the sound guy to turn you to 0, and I just matched his strum, and I got to play in front of paying audiences way before I should have. And it was just awesome. So then I think, that those first 2 years of songwriting, when I actually had the guitar, I look back and I don't know that I'll ever have as prolific a time of songwriting. Like, songs were just exploding out of me. Not all good songs, but some of them. I've gone back to some of those early songs and I'm like, why did I never record this? This is like kind of a good song. Like, it's a little more, I don't know, like simple maybe than I write now, but it felt like, like in superhero movies, like Spider-Man like discovers the webs can shoot out of his wrists or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it felt like getting a new superpower, because I thought, I'm never going to be able to do this. This is like something you have to start when you're really young. But I picked it up at 40 or 42 and I was just like, oh my God, I can actually do this. And now I'm doing it like professionally, in addition to all the other stuff I do, which is like crazy to me. And it makes me feel like, well, anything's possible, and it doesn't have to start when you're young, like, and maybe, I don't want to dismiss, like, I think I do have some innate talent for this. I don't know if it's everyone's lane, but it really awakened something in me. And especially during COVID, where I wrote some of my favorite songs, like, I never felt alone during those first months, because I had my guitar, and songs were just pouring out of me at that point.
I was just listening to Apocalyptic Love Song, actually, and
Yeah.
I highly recommend everyone to listen to that all the way through, and like with an ear of the progress, the evolution of that song is so beautiful. But you're also just reminding me, Josh, of how change happens in the mirror of other, in our friendships, in our relationships, in our partnership. Like, Ben was there midwifing something through you at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And how, yeah, we really need each other, especially in times of change, but also often as a catalyst of change, of like someone who is really there and takes a stand for that which wants to come through you.
Yeah. And sometimes that can be like a friend, but sometimes that can present as an enemy, or as an oppositional force, right? Like someone that brings forth something in us through irritation or
Absolutely.
through opposition. Like, I love the story from the Ramayana, when Lord Rama he's been chased by this demon, this Ravana, I think the demon is called, and is just stalking Rama. But it's through these series of battles with Ravana, this demon, that Rama becomes the great warrior and king he was always supposed to be. And at the final battle, he's about to slay Ravana, and he says, right before he delivers the final blow, he says to him, "Thank you for playing your role so well." And then Ravana says, basically, like, "You're welcome," and kind of opens his chest so he can kill him. And I find that story so moving, that even in a universe that looks like it's littered with opposition or enemies, what if this drama is so perfectly scripted that we're just always being edged towards refinement, and edged forward by by myriad forces, not just friends like Ben or you, but also people that look like they have it out for us. There is almost certainly some divine providence for those things too.
Uh, yes, yes, I feel like I've been fortunate to have a lot of opposition in my life, and and maybe we can talk about that another time. But I really get what you're saying, and thank you for that reminder, because it's I think many of us listening here today have had that experience, have had a lot of challenge or resistance, or have had that person or that situation that feels impossible, or it's just like so incredibly difficult, but through it, on in the perspective of the other side, we often can find some semblance of
Yeah.
gratitude, or find the light in there.
I mean, I don't think if you interview any successful person, whether it's kind of worldly success or spiritual success, th- they're they're almost certainly will tell you it was their failures and their setbacks and their struggles that were the most important refining and qualities that allowed them to discover who they are. Sometimes we have to discover, like sometimes I try to pay attention to where I'm stuck and where doors aren't opening. Like I think I noticed this when as a young actor, I went on so many auditions when I was starting out, and I noticed that no matter how much I wanted a role or how well prepared I was or how good I thought I was, sometimes the door was just locked. But the roles I got, it was like the doors just kept opening, opening, opening. There was like an effortlessness to it.
Josh, can you remind, I don't want to butcher it, but you've given me so many words of wisdom over the years, but something in relationship to what you were just saying, and it was about, I think I was um really sad about some relationship dynamic of the moment, and you were saying, well, yeah, it's kind of like when you're an actor and you're auditioning for a part. If that part is meant for you, there's nothing that you can do
Yeah.
that will. Can you say that in your
Yeah.
words?
If the part, if the part is yours, there's nothing you can do to screw it up. If the part
Mhm.
isn't yours, there's nothing you can do to get it.
Yes, and we can apply that to everything in our life, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's, sometimes, yeah, like relationships, like you're like, why doesn't this work? Like we both want this. Or why am I not getting this job? I'm the best person for it. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that what's for us is for us and what's not for us is not for us. And
Yeah, and we have to experience that opposition of like wanting something and then recognizing that maybe what is for us is even bigger than what we could have previously
yeah.
imagined,
And I
probably.
also think about this idea that if you have a truly like happy day, like a really beautiful day, let's say you're hiking with your beloved and you're at the most beautiful vista and you feel the touch of their hand and you just like all is right with the world. All is right with the world. And you're going to have a beautiful dinner and you're going to lie down together at the end of the night and feel this sense of peace, just like one of those perfect days, beautiful days, blessed days. You have to bless every moment, twist, and turn of your life that brought you to that day. All the heartbreak, breakups, not gotten jobs, getting fired, whatever it is, failed business, like all of it brought you to that day. And you'd never have given up that day. You want to bless that day. So that means you have to bless everything that day is standing upon, which is your life.
Mm. Wow, that's so beautiful, Josh. That was really such a nice share. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience today?
I'll just maybe talk about you and how grateful I am for you and what a warrior I know you to be, but also like a tender-hearted warrior. You're not just ferocious, you're mush too. And you're kind and you care more than anyone I know. And you also have more bravery about putting yourself in a path of where knowledge might roll over you and take you. I continue to be stunned at some of um the spaces you put yourself in, both literally and metaphorically, like to grow and learn and deepen. Um, and I feel like whoever comes across you or your writing or this podcast is like a lucky person. And I love you.
I love you, Josh. Thank you. Thank you for being uh, such an incredible mirror and true friend. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being on this podcast and exploring change and sharing your wisdom with us. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today. And if you want to find more about Josh, Josh, where should they go? Where do you want their attention to fly, to
They
soar?
can find my music wherever music is streamed. It's just my name, Josh Radnor, Radnor. I'm doing a podcast with Craig Thomas, the co-creator of How I Met Your Mother, the show that I was on for a long time. You can go to howwemadeyyourmother.com, www. I think you can go to hwmym.com or howwemadeyyourmother.com. Also, my newsletters are over on Substack. I'm going to try to write more. It's been a while since I've written one, but that's where I share a lot of stuff I would say that's more kind of aligned with this conversation we've been having. And I'm mostly on Instagram if you want to check in with socials, but yeah, that's about it.
Let's talk again really soon, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Love you,
Thanks,
Ciela.
everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Love you too. Thank you.
Okay.